Hello to everyone and welcome back to our Python tutorials. Today we are actually going to look at types. When we talk about types, we mean data types. That's if you are not very used to computer science, for example, you might not know what it is, but I promise you by the end of these tutorials you will understand what we are talking about. So just stay tuned. So we are actually back on our Python shell. That's that basic interface that permits us to write a simple Python code and see them being executed on the spot. Okay, so today, like I said, we'll talk about types, data types. In Python, everything we use, that's the numbers, the words, actually they belong to a specific type. When we talk about types, we have types of numbers, types of even we have types of colors. Yes, we have green, blue, red. Those are types of colors. We have types of animals, antelopes, or I don't know if you classify them as mammals, reptiles, and all that. Everything basically in this world exists as types. So in Python too, we have types. So the data we use in Python can be classified in some categories, and here we will just see the basic categories of data types. Okay, so we're going to have the first one we'll see. We have integers. Now integers in Python are represented using the int keyword. That's int, as you can see here. Int. It shows us class int. So integers are basically positive and negative whole numbers with 0 being included. So positive numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative numbers like -1, -2, -3. Those are all integers, and 0, 2 is an integer. We have another class, float. Float actually refers to what we call in mathematics real numbers. So they actually are all numbers humanly defined, that's except the complex numbers. So when we talk about float, we are talking about real numbers. For example, 0.5, 2.6, and so on. So we have floats which belong to class float. A class in programming is simply the blueprint for an object. That is a model from which we carve out an object. We'll come to that in our later tutorials, future tutorials, so don't too much worry about that. So we will continue. We have also what we call booleans, represented with bool in Python, B-O-O-L. Those are booleans. Booleans are simply data types that can have two values. For example, if they ask you the question, do you want to eat now? You have the question. You have two possibilities for answers. Actually, you can say yes, you can say no. That is basically a boolean. A boolean is a data type that can have two possible values. Either it is true or false. Exactly. So those are booleans. Either they are true or they are false. Either they are 1 or they are 0. We get the idea. And we'll continue to strings. Strings are actually a means that Python or all programming languages use to represent words, characters. You see the idea. So strings are represented with str in Python. So you see we have class string, class str that represents strings. Everything basically that is a word put in quotes. For example, hello is a string. It's a string actually. So we'll see more about strings later. So these are basically the data types that we have in Python. All our variables, all what the numbers, characters, or what we are going to use in Python will be taken from these types. And later too, we are going to see how to build our own data types from what we call classes. Classes, like I said before, a class is just a model with which we build other objects, and basically all of these types here are objects. When we talk about an object, we mean something that has a shape, properties, things it can do. For example, human beings can be considered as objects because they have a way they look, they have attributes, that properties, things peculiar to them, and they have things they can do. For example, a human being can talk, he can walk. So those are some of the functions or some of the things a human being can do. So let's just stay tuned. In our next tutorial, we'll talk about the first two types, that is integers and floating point numbers or real numbers. So stay tuned and don't forget to like and subscribe.